The world's current wealthiest individuals, such as Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Bill Gates, boast fortunes exceeding $100 billion. Their wealth is truly staggering. Their wealth, when adjusted for inflation, doesn't make them the wealthiest people in history. Today, we'll talk about the richest people in history and how they made their huge fortunes from the past. Let's begin with number 1. John Rockefeller was an oil tycoon who is known as the wealthiest self-made man of recent times. His net worth was estimated to be around $400 billion in today's currency, even after donating a significant amount of his wealth. John D. Rockefeller came from a humble background. He was born into a big family. His father was often not around. He was also known for selling remedies. John had to help his family from a young age. He did odd jobs such as taking care of the neighbors' turkeys, selling potatoes, and candy. John was skilled at these tasks and put in a lot of effort, despite their low pay. So he was able to save enough money to start offering small loans to other people. So even as a young boy, that entrepreneurial instinct was there. At age 16, he quit school and became a bookkeeper, earning 50 cents a day. He worked there for 2 years. His employers wouldn't give him a good raise. He wanted to earn $100,000 to start his own produce business. He realized he had to create something to achieve his goal. He was fortunate to have gained valuable knowledge from his initial job. This job provided him with the opportunity to establish relationships and a positive reputation. As a result, he was able to secure $4,000 to launch his own business. A business selling goods like meat, hay, and grain, which did well in the first year of trading. It made almost $500,000. Rockefeller didn't keep all the money. He used some for business expenses and loans. Rockefeller had more money to invest. There was a big opportunity, and that opportunity was oil. In 1859, the first oil well was found in America. This caused a rush for oil in Pennsylvania. Rockefeller noticed that the real money was not in drilling oil, but in refining it. He was 24 years old. He used money from his first business to build an oil refinery. Now, around this time, he met a man named Henry Flagler who was interested in investing in his business, and so together, they incorporated the Standard Oil Company and began the process of buying out all the smaller nearby oil refineries that they were in competition with. He would sell his oil at a loss if the refineries refused to sell to him. This caused their customers to go to him instead, which led to the smaller companies going out of business. These kind of practices allowed the Standard Oil Company to keep expand across the entire country. They kept buying out rivals, undercutting competitors, and cutting costs wherever possible. As they grew, they gained more power to negotiate. This allowed them to seek better deals on rates, prices, and discounts for everything. Rockefeller was also known for some secret shady deals, and so with all of these factors combined. By the 1870s, Rockefeller's oil company owned 90% of the world's oil refining industry. He hired the owners of the oil refineries he bought as board trustees. This meant that all the top oil experts were working together in one company, with Rockefeller at the head of it. He owned 20,000 oil wells, had over 100,000 employees, and at the very peak, some estimate its total value would today have been worth almost $1,000. Rockefeller created an unusual empire. He continued to expand it. During this era, oil and railroads were the largest industries. So Rockefeller set out to do a similar thing he'd just done with oil, with railroads. He started taking over another business, and people started to dislike him. He was depicted as the ultimate symbol of corporate greed and cruelty in response to Rockefeller's ever-growing empire. Lawmakers passed rules to stop monopolies from forming. The Sherman Antitrust Act caused Standard Oil to split up into smaller companies. Except over time, many of these subsidiaries would simply merge back together and are still around to this day, such as BP and Chevron. Rockefeller owned shares in several companies that were split up, but he kept his share. When he died, he was still the richest person in the world. He was probably the richest self-made man in modern history. Now, what should we actually think about John D. Rockefeller? He made oil cheap and accessible to everyone. He went from nothing to building a business empire that may never be matched again. He donated $540 million to charity. This makes him one of the best philanthropists ever. When you adjust for inflation, his accomplishment is even more impressive. Rockefeller was a greedy and ruthless businessman. He often bullied, extorted, and exploited others. He used merciless tactics to dominate his competitors. Biographer Ron Chernow argues his good side was every bit as good as his bad side was bad. Seldom has history produced such a contradictory figure. But what's undeniable is he will always be remembered for his insanely vast fortune and the impact he had. But wait, we now need to travel back in time even further to someone who was arguably much richer than Rockefeller, and yet many people have never heard of him. Before we begin, it's important to note that it's difficult to accurately rank wealth the further back in time we go. When we're talking about modern history, it's a lot easier. For example, we can say with a good level of certainty that Andrew Carnegie had an empire worth around $310 billion as he founded the Carnegie Steel Company, which later became U.S. Steel. The world's first billion-dollar company was established. Henry Ford had a company valued at around $200 billion before he died in 1947, because he founded Ford Motor Company and pioneered assembly line mass production. Businessmen who are like that are easier to calculate their wealth, but once we start talking about the value of owning countries and land, things get a little blurrier. Some people disagree with Forbes' rich list. They don't agree that Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos are the richest people in the world. This disagreement still happens today. Some people say Vladimir Putin is the richest person in the world. It's just difficult to verify exactly what he owns. Let's revisit our list of the wealthiest individuals in history, starting from the 14th century. While we find Mansa Musa considered by many historians as the richest human to ever live, Mansa Musa was the ruler of the Mali Empire in Africa for 25 years. The empire was very wealthy in salt and gold. Sources say they produced the most gold worldwide and owned over 50% of all gold. Mansa expands Mali's trade routes. This helped them trade gold and salt in Africa and Asia. Under his leadership, the Mali Empire tripled in size. He won 24 important cities. People think he never lost a fight while alive. Mansa gained territories for Mali Empire. They joined willingly. This happened because citizens had a good quality of life. However, Mansa wasn't content with that. He wanted to truly put the Mali Empire on the map to the whole world. He was a religious Muslim. He planned to go on a pilgrimage to Mecca. He saw an opportunity to capture the world's attention during the trip. And thus, in 1324, he began the most extravagant pilgrimage in human history. Mansa Musa went on a journey that was around 4,000 miles long. He was accompanied by many soldiers, slaves, and heralds. They were wearing Persian silk and carrying gold and staffs. About 60,000 people traveled with him. They carried hundreds of pounds in gold. Mansa gave away lots of gold to poor people he met on his journey. It was a notable event, and it was also reported he built a masjid every Friday. He was generous, but it didn't work out well. He spent a lot of gold on souvenirs during his trip. This caused problems with the economy. It made prices go up a lot. Since these territories had never had so much gold before and he was handing out so freely. And if you really think about that, it highlights how absurdly rich Mansa Musa was that he essentially caused a financial crisis by spending too much on his travels. He came back from his journey. Mali Empire took Timbuktu because he told them to, and he established that as the epicenter for commerce in the region. He'd also brought back with him scholars and architects who helped him build schools, and masjids meant to even establish the first major university in the region, which could take up to 25,000 students and had one of the largest libraries in the world. Different building projects improved the city's reputation. It attracted top scholars from Africa and beyond. Mansa is praised for advancing the Mali Empire. Historians think he made it more prosperous and developed. However, Mansa did indeed put the Mali Empire on the map like he wanted. It didn't quite have the intended consequences. News of the abundant wealth and gold reached Europe. Several European powers saw an opportunity to conquer the empire and take the resources for themselves. Mansa would have passed away by then. He will be remembered as one of the wealthiest individuals in history. Now, as to how rich he was, some estimates put Mansa's modern-day wealth equivalent at between $400 and $500 billion. It's hard to compare today's money with old fortunes based on salt, gold, and land. So I guess you could say take this estimate with a very big pinch of salt. However, because historians can't quite agree on how to compare wealth from so many centuries ago, that means the title of the richest person ever is still up for debate. So let's finish this video with 3 very honorable mentions who may be contenders. Genghis Khan could have been the richest person in history. the fearsome Mongol leader conquered a mind-blowing 12 million square miles of land between 1206 and his death in 1227, more than anyone else in history. He conquered many kingdoms and took their wealth and possessions. The land he took was also valuable. All of this would have been worth trillions of dollars. Or, in other words, incomprehensibly large amounts. It's hard to measure. It's a very harsh way to make money. But it worked well. Another candidate for the richest person in history is Jacob Fugger, also known as Jacob Fugger, the Rich. And you don't get a name like that without having a pretty giant fortune. In fact, if you took Europe's entire economic output at the time Jacob was alive, he owned 2.2% of all of that of the entire continent. Jacob was one of 11 children. He became a banker. He financed kings, explorers, and religious leaders. Before Fugger, Christians couldn't charge interest on loans. Fugger convinced the Pope to change this, and he profited greatly from the new rule. And a biography written about him, the author explains, the Fugger just seemed to have a gift for making money and spotting opportunities, especially when it came to business and investments. The Archduke of Austria required a loan, but no other banker would provide it. Fugger decided to offer the loan. This decision yielded significant benefits. He was good at getting others to lend him money. He would then invest the money and make a larger profit. He was undeniably very strategic and shrewd, and built a fortune that would today be worth an estimated $400 billion. But now, it's time for one final candidate for the richest person ever. And that is Caesar Augustus, the first Roman emperor, ruled from 27 BC to 1480 when he died. Time magazine estimated that his net worth today is $4.6 trillion. He owned all of Egypt personally, but it's hard to know how rich he was because it happened a long time ago. We don't know who is the richest person ever. However, we can say that all the people mentioned in the video were extremely rich and among the wealthiest people ever. Their wealth was much bigger than Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, at least for now. Of course, both of these men are still working and growing their business empires. If one of them achieves a significant milestone like colonizing Mars, their wealth could increase significantly. But now a question for you. What are your thoughts on all of these incredibly wealthy historical figures? I know for some people, hearing about wealth can be kind of motivating, whereas for other people, it can just seem really unfair. But if you do feel that way, then it's worth remembering that the fact you have access to antibiotics, electricity, internet, and so on means in many ways your quality of life is greater than some of the richest kings, emperors, and business magnates in history that we've just heard about. After all, you can do something that Rockefeller, Mansa Musa, and all the others never could. You can subscribe to Insight Forge. We will have more mini documentaries on this channel about money and business. If you liked this video, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.